Hello Andhra students. In this video, we are going to discuss the question paper pattern and important questions for Managerial Economics, BBA second semester. Let's get started. Let us see question paper pattern for Adikavi Nannaya University. Coming to question paper pattern. Total marks 70 marks and we have section A and section B. Section A is for 20 marks and section B is for 50 marks. In section A, you have to attempt any 5 questions and 3 questions are choice. In section B, we have an internal choice. You can attempt either 9A or 9B. 9A and 9B from Unit 1, 10A and 10B from Unit 2, 11A and 11B from Unit 3, 12A and 12B from Unit 4, 13A and 13B from Unit 5. Coming to important questions. Unit 1. Introduction to Managerial Economics. Part A. Define Managerial Economics. You can explain these questions with proper definition part and elaborate these questions with futures or objectives or scope. Next question. Define the incremental principle. What is the opportunity cost principle? What is meant by discounting principle? What is the scope of Managerial Economics? You can explain these questions in points format. Explain the nature of Managerial Economics. These two questions are 5-star rating questions and these two questions are 3-star rated questions. These two questions are 5-star rating questions and these questions are very important questions in part A in Unit 1. Coming to part B. Distinguish between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Explain the relevance to Managerial Economics. Explain these differences in tabular form and explain these part with proper side headings. Next question. Discuss the importance of Managerial Economics in modern business management. You can explain these questions with proper side headings. Discuss the equimarginal principle and explain how it helps in the optimal allocation of resources. Discuss the basic principles of Managerial Economics and explain how they help in solving business problems. Explain the practical applications of Managerial Economics in business organization with examples. This question is 5-star rating questions. These two questions are 3-star rating questions. These two questions are 5-star rating questions. And students, this question is very important question because it is asking practical application of Managerial Economics in business organization with examples. You have to explain these questions with real life examples. Coming to Unit 2, Demand, Supply and Consumer Behavior. Part A. First question, Determinants of Demand. Define elasticity of demand. This question is very important question. Elasticity of demand. You have to explain this question with proper meaning part. Next question, what is price elasticity? What is price elasticity of demand? Define gross elasticity of demand. What is demand forecasting? State the law of supply. State the law of demand. These questions are 5-star rating questions and very important questions in Unit 2, Part A. You have to explain these questions with proper meaning part and elaborate these questions with their futures or with objectives and scope. Coming to Part B, explain the law of demand and discuss the determinants of demand. First, write the meaning part for law of demand and explain the determinants with proper side headings. Next question, explain the method for measuring price elasticity of demand. You can explain these questions with proper methods for measuring. Next question, distinguish between demand and supply with suitable example. You can explain these questions with differences in neat tabular form and explain their examples. Explain how elasticity of demand helps managers in pricing decisions. Discuss the types of demand forecasting. You can elaborate these questions with proper types of demand forecasting. Explain the law of supply and the factors determining supply. These questions are 5-star rating questions and very important questions in Unit 2. Coming to Unit 3, Utility Theory and Consumer Equilibrium. Part A, define utility in economics, define marginal utility, explain the definition part for these two questions in proper format. Next question, state the law of diminishing marginal utility. What is an indifference curve? You can explain these questions in graphical representation. Next question, define the marginal rate of substitution. What is a budget line? These questions are 5-star rating questions. And these questions are very important questions. What is an indifference curve and what is budget line? Law of diminishing marginal utility. These questions are very important questions in Unit 3, Part A. Coming to Part B, explain the cardinal utility approach and discuss the concepts of total utility and marginal utility. Explain the meaning part for cardinal utility approach and elaborate the concepts of total utility and marginal utility. State and explain law of diminishing marginal utility with exemptions and exceptions. Next question, explain the law of equimarginal utility and its importance in consumer decision making. Write the meaning part for law of equimarginal utility and explain their importance with proper side headings. Define an indifference curve and explain its properties. First, you have to explain the definition part for indifference curve and draw the graphical representation and explain its properties with proper side headings. Explain the budget line and its role in consumer choice. Next question, explain the concept of marginal rate of substitution and its significance. Write the concept for marginal rate of substitution and explain its significance. Significance or importance, both are same. And these questions are 5-star rating questions. Very important questions in Unit 3. Coming to Unit 4, production, cost and market structures. Part A, define production function. Explain the definition part for production function. State the law of variable proportions. What are returns to scale? What is implicit cost? Next question, monopoly. You can explain the meaning part for monopoly and explain its features so that you can elaborate these questions for 4 marks. What are economies of scale? These questions are 5-star rating questions and important questions in Unit 4 for Part A. Coming to Part B, explain the production function and its importance in managerial economics. First, you have to explain the production function and explain its importance in managerial economics. You have to explain these importance with proper side headings. And next question, explain the law of variable proportion with assumptions and stages. Explain the meaning part and explain its assumptions and stages of law of variable proportions. Discuss the economies of scale and its types. You can elaborate this question with its types. Compare monopoly and monopolistic competition. Explain the shortened cost curves with diagrams. You have to explain these questions with proper diagrams by using shortened cost curves. Next question, what is the concept of market? Describe the classification of markets. First, write the concept of market and explain its classification with the neat flowchart. Explain the meaning of diseconomies of scale and discuss its types. First, you have to write the meaning part for diseconomies of scale and explain its types. These questions are 5-star rating questions. Coming to Unit 5, Macroeconomic Analysis for Managers, Part A. Components of national income. National income, you have to write the meaning part of national income and you can explain with its features or objectives so that you can elaborate these questions for 4 marks. What is gross domestic product? What is meant by GNP? What are business cycles? What is net national product? Explain the meaning part for these questions. These 4 questions are 5-star rating questions and this question is 3-star rating questions and very important questions in Unit 5, Part A. Coming to Part B, define national income. Explain the different methods for measuring national income. First, you have to write the definition for national income and explain its methods for measuring national income. Next question, Define the term national income. Explain the concepts of national income. Distinguish between GDP and GNP with suitable example. You have to explain these questions in tabular form and write the examples for GDP and GNP. Discuss the impact of business cycles on business organization. This question is very important. Impact of business cycles on business organizations. Discuss the importance of macroeconomic environment in business planning. Explain how government policies influences economic stability. This question is also very important in Unit 5 Part B. Discuss the Keynesian theory of income and employment. These questions also very important Unit 5 Part B, and these questions are 5-star rating questions. Apart from these important questions, you can score up to 70% by downloading the C app and practicing the 5-star and 3-star questions.